Alright, so there's a few ways of building a fire. My favorites is a mixture between the log cabin and the pyramid. So the ingredients I have is I found a little piece of cardboard which I'm gonna just tear up. I also have found a piece of toilet paper. And now unlikely, but luck would have it, I have some glycerine and potassium permanganate. Now the glycerine, I don't know what it's doing in there. Maybe suppositories, I'm not sure why it's in the first aid kit. Potassium permanganate, maybe it's good at disinfecting stuff. Just pour a bit of that in there. And now pour the glycerine on top and hope something happens, but not too much. I don't want to burn my camera. If it snaps, then it's ready. Oh, there we go. That piece is ready. Ready. Anyway, came and installed a piece. Flew off. See this area, it's pretty dry, quite an arid landscape, and the noise you can hear behind me is an enormous water pump. And this is the Orange River, and you can see that beyond this riverine habitat, this area is very arid. So this Orange River basically is giving life in terms of water to this area. And it flows all the way from the Sutu. I don't know, it's like 1600 kilometers away. And as it flows through these arid areas, extracting water gives the people an opportunity to put in some agriculture, to grow some crops. And those pumps are pumping this valuable resource, pumping this water up through these pipes. And this allows the people, the whole length of the Orange River, it allows the people on the banks of the Orange River to irrigate their land and to grow crops and to find some kind of livelihood. Because you can see without it, without the water it's a desert. Hopefully by now you're saying to yourself, or saying to me, come on bro, You don't need a PhD to tell me that without water there's a desert. But this area doesn't receive much rainfall. The only water that's provided is either through fog or through the river. But one of the plants that does really well in these arid environments is this one. See, this is a tamarix. It's called Tamarix usnioides, and usnioides means looks like usnia. That was a hint. Usnia is old man's beard, which you often see hanging out of jungles and whatnot. So it's basically a tamarix that looks like an old man's beard. And tamarix, it's really interesting. They've got salt glands, so they can survive high salinity by excreting salt. And the salt is excreted in these very, very small leaves. And when it's dropped, obviously the salt from the leaves that it's gathered by being a plant concentrates on the soil. And by concentrating the salt in the soil when the leaves drop, increasing the salinity can often change the ecosystem and changes the type of plants that can grow around the area. So I think the tamarix in like the Colorado River are basically changing the botany in the area and selecting things like the salix, the willows, which can also resist quite a lot of salt content, a lot better than the poplars. And talking about willows, this is a willow. Doesn't look like much. It's also a salix, Salix macronuta, the Cape willow, and it can also deal with a lot of high salt content. So the tamarix in the Colorado River, as I was saying, concentrates the salt in the leaves. It's got salt glands, excretes the salt as the leaves drop, increases the salinity of the soil, and basically excludes poplars from the Colorado River, and the willows then take over. And I want to find a dead, well, not really a dead willow, but willow obviously, as we all watch the fantastic Medicinal Mondays, salix, salicylic acid comes from willows, which is used to make aspirin. So I'll see if I can find you some. Let's go back to some of these tamarix. Now these tamarix grow very well in these arid environments, as I said, and I want to try and see if I can find but because they grow so well in these arid environments, they've actually played a part historically. They were being used as firewood, so the Nafutian area, kind of 12,000 BC, kind of where Israel is, they've found tamarix wood being used as firewood. So in their little caves, they found tamarix wood being used as firewood, but also, interestingly, and a bit of a side tangent, is in the same caves that they found this tamarix as firewood, they found the first fossil evidence of domestication of dogs. So there was someone buried there with a small 4-month-old puppy, which is quite interesting. 12,000 BC, already got puppies running around. So tamarix is an interesting story historically. Also, let's go and have a look and see if this bush has any. It also plays an even bigger role historically, that I can't see any here, but there's a small scale insect Small scale insect is Trabetina manipara, I think it is. Again, I should really look this stuff up before I come and talk. But it's a type of scale insect, and the manipara is a hint. So they think that the scale insects drink the sap of the tamarix plant, only the tamarix plant. It's called the tamarix scale insect. And it produces the honeydew, and the honeydew crystallizes into this kind of golden crystal. And it's thought that the manipara, manna from heaven. So it's thought that the Israelites on their 40-year trek through the desert survived eating the honeydew off the tamarix scale insect, or even the insects themselves. So it's one of the leading theories that they actually survived the trek through the desert because of these very drought tolerant and desert adapted plants and the scale insects that grew on them. As mentioned in the old religious texts, the manna from heaven. I don't know if you saw that little bird, little wing flicks. It's a good way to identify that this is a familiar chat. In Afrikaans, it's called a spekvreter, which means a fat eater. And considering we're talking about history, it's not as far back as the Natufian, not a Futian. No one ever said Nafutian. The Natufian area. It's called a spekvreter because, and you see it was by a house, and these guys are fairly cheeky and they adapt well to people, so they're always hanging around. There's another one. Oh, it's under a bush. Maybe I can get a bit closer. Oh, this is not good TV. So here's your familiar chat, or the grass. There we go. I'm pretty close. They've also got a T-bar on their tail of rufous color, which is how you can tell them apart from some of the other chats. But that wing flick pretty characteristic, and also because it was close to that little building you saw, so they adapt well to human habitation. And it seems like they've been adapting well to human habitation for a quite long time, because the name spekvrete came from eating the fat that the first people that came from Europe to this area with their ox wagons used fat to lubricate the wheels and the axles of their ox wagons. And these guys are hanging around, obviously chowing the fat. So little spekvrete, the familiar chat. A little bit too familiar if you ask me, because I was having a braai earlier by my accommodation, near my accommodation, around my accommodation, and lived up to his name. Not only do they eat the fat off the axles of the ox wagons a few hundred years ago, they also steal little bits of boerewors, which is a type of sausage, right off the braai grill and made off for it. So it's a good camera, Brie. And focus on exactly what you want. Oh my goodness. Ah.